Hey, how are you guys? What's happening? Welcome to Wednesday. Kyle has to take the evening off, but you got me. You're stuck with me. Who am I? I'm Bill Sylvie, aka the Dungeon Delver, coming to you live and in color. And I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic evening. Of course, it is good to see you, and it is good to be seen by you. So anyway, I'm doing pretty good myself. I can't complain. Guys, we are up to 4,831 subscribers on this channel. Welcome to all the folks who are joining along with our little show here, our little slice of tabletop RPG goodness. And look, if you're getting a late start this week, if you missed first edition AD&D, if you missed the weekly miniature diorama on Monday, and you're like, it's Wednesday, he's going to run his mouth and there's no more good stuff. Don't worry, because tomorrow night, Eric Garland and Heidi Gygax Garland are going to be in the show. They're going to be here. They're going to be talking about their latest Kickstarter and all kinds of cool stuff. They'll be here to answer your questions. We're going to have a good time. I have a lot of fun on the show when Heidi and Eric are here, and I think you guys do too. So that's going to be that's going to be a lot of fun. That's going to be good. That's going to be cool. We're going to enjoy that. And speaking of things we're going to enjoy, pardon me while I crack open a cold one. There we go. Here's mud in your eye. Very refreshing. But anyway, so of course, I come up with ideas, fresh, new, fun ideas, things that you guys might like on the show. And I know a lot of y'all are hankering for a dive into this absolutely gorgeous volume right here, but and other stuff, right? I've got tons and tons. I've got piles and piles of RPG material that so many of you guys have asked if we could look at. But I thought about something today, and maybe this will take up the whole show. Maybe it won't take up the whole show. We'll see. We'll do our best. But I was thinking about this, and, I throw out ideas. I engage on Twitter, because I got to tell you something. RPG Twitter is good. It's fun. Okay? I don't have hateful arguments. I see, like, politics and what do you call it? Culture war stuff go by, and I'm just like, show me less of this. Show me less of. I filter it till it's just people talking about tabletop role-playing games, and in doing that, I have some great times. And there's a lot of people out there on the Twitter who are fun, and they're a lot of they're a lot of nice people to engage with. I'll talk about what I want to, Juan. Thank you. But anyway, so folks, I say folks, are my L's any different? Folks. But anyway, but I was thinking about it. I was thinking it'll be okay, Mon. It'll be okay. We have plenty of stuff, TSR and non-TSR, to talk about. So I post stuff up for engagement, get a little dopamine rush, little push down there on the corpus callosum to release that when people click the like button and the retweet button. And even best is when they respond, right? We all do it. But something I was thinking about today, and I deeply believe this is just something I've never given voice to, And this is especially true down in this end, the old school end of the hobby. And it is this. But before I get to that, of course, I want to remind you folks, please like this video if you like it. Click the bell icon for notifications and the subscribe button all together. It's all a package. And remember that this live stream is brought to you by our friends at Hellebarde Games. Hellebarde makes the kind of adventures they'd like to play, whether it's for 5th edition, whether it's for Castles and Crusades or the OSR. Old School is in play at the table with Hellebarde Games, and you can check them out on Drive-Thru RPG or their website, hellebardegames.com. So, good evening, John. This is the thing. This is the thing that I was thinking about. When you are playing classic Dungeons and Dragons, look, whether you're playing original D&D, whether you're playing first edition advanced Dungeons and Dragons, whether you're playing some form of basic or some form of mutated mix of it all. Yeah, you guys in Australia put an R in hello, so I don't want to hear about I sound funny. But here's the thing. If you run a classic Dungeons and Dragons game, I'm talking 70s or early 80s Dungeons and Dragons, and you make yourself available, you place the front towards the enemy, as it were. You step up, you go to a comic store, you go to a convention, you do an LFG search, and raise your hand and say, I'm going to do this. Let me tell you something. A lot of people will come to classic Dungeons and Dragons, not new into the hobby, but this applies even if they do. And I would dare say, especially if they do. But they will come from other editions of Dungeons and Dragons. They'll want to know. They'll want to know. They won't have any experience with it. The rules are different, and they're getting more different every year. Now, people talk about the simplicity of 5e. 5e is not a simple system. It has good bones. It has good, simple bones. But I'll have videos on that will autoplay when I'm doing stuff here in the office just for noise, and I'll be half listening, and I'm like, what are they even talking about? And stop and listen, and they're talking about like stats in the mid-20s. It's like an alien language to me, but they're talking about Dungeons and Dragons. So when those people come to you and they say, I want to learn this. I mean, we can talk about being brassy badasses, right? And you grab them and you throw them in the deep end of the pool and you step back and you say, sink or swim. Guys, I want more people to play classic Dungeons and Dragons. I want more and more people to experience the awesomeness. I want to take more people through the Temple of Elemental Evil. I want to take more people through Against the Giants. I want them to see the Baroque beauty that is classic D&D. Imagine someone who was brought up thinking all architecture was 50s and 60s neo-brutalism. I mean, just the name of that school of architecture should tell you all you need to know. Brutalist style architecture. And then, for the first time in their lives, you show them pictures of, or take them into the cathedral in Madrid designed and created by Antoine Gaudi. And you just watch how rapt they are as they take it in. That's the reaction that I want from people coming to our hobby. Now, I've been lucky. I've never had anyone walk away from an event I've run and say, yeah, that was my first time trying classic D&D. That sucked. Quite to the contrary, everyone has always enjoyed it. Am I such an egomaniac as to think it was only because of my dungeon mastering? No, not quite. But we cannot, as dungeon masters, as ambassadors of classic D&D, if you want this hobby to grow, or at the very least not shrink, we can't just throw people in to the deep end of the pool and say, lol, whatever, you should have paid attention. Take your time to be nice to people who want to learn to play classic Dungeons and Dragons. Meet them in the middle with their understandings. If all they know is Strixhaven, don't launch on a 2-hour polemic about why Strixhaven sucks. I think Strixhaven sucks, by the way. I'm not trying to soft pedal well, I've been thinking about it, and I think maybe it's not so bad. You've got to... I don't know anything about it, Lux. I honestly don't. You've got to be willing to reach out to people, to take them gently by the hand, give them a reassuring squeeze, and work through the rules with them. Yes, it's very funny, lol, to con a player into touching the Sphere of Annihilation in the Tomb of Horrors. But the reality is, we do a disservice to our hobby when we make the entry point too hard. I've talked a lot, and there's a lot of there's a lot of gatekeeping discussion. The gatekeeping word is thrown around. And I do think that the gate needs to be kept, and I've addressed it before, but I'm talking about the difficulty curve. Now, you might say, well, people have to learn, Bill. You're not always going to be there to hold their hands. They got to fly solo. They got to swim. They got to learn to swim. Ask Bluto. Bluto's over on the Discord. Ask him if the first day in Air Force Academy, they dragged him out to the tarmac and threw him in the cockpit of an F-15 and dropped a -1 in his lap and walked off and said, get it off the ground or you're out. Ask him if they did that. Because if you think they did, you're wrong. You must teach. You must be an ambassador for classic Dungeons and Dragons. You must learn to teach players how to play. It's not enough just to say, well, I played starting in 1978, and I played with the same 8 people since then. Well, now it's 5 because, a bunch of them quit. But we want new players, but we don't want anybody who doesn't know how to play. It doesn't work like that. You've got to meet people halfway and teach good Dungeons and Dragons. Does that involve, kid gloves? Sure, absolutely, particularly if it's a younger set. you are front-facing for classic Dungeons and Dragons. Now let's talk about gatekeeping. Let's talk about gatekeeping, and let's talking about why that's important and the gate you need to keep. So here's the gate you need to keep. Your gate needs to be the following dimensions wide and tall. Do you want to play classic D&D? Or do you want to play D&D at all? You know what? If you're out there and you watch this show just because you like me and my demeanor and my snappy patter and my jokes and everything, but you don't give a fig about classic D&D, let's just throw classic D&D out for a moment and let's just talk about RPGs in general. The gate you have to keep, regardless of what edition or what game it is the following. Do you want to play? Do you want to roll funny dice and pretend to be a superhero, an elf, a spaceman, a ghost, a vampire, a demigod, a giant lizard, a computer program, a cowboy, and any number of things in between for a couple of hours a night, 1 or 2 nights a week for at least a few months? Do you want to just set aside concerns? Is that what you want to do? And if they say yes, above anything else, then guess what? They just fit through the gate. If you ask them what they want to do, to tell you what they truly and really and honestly want to do, and they start in about representation and fairness and equity and breaking and changing, tell them that it's probably not the hobby for them. Or if they come with airs of, I'd really like to find a group that's going to be the next Critical Role. If they're pausing every 5 minutes to, hashtag roleplay life, hashtag D&D, and take selfies with you and of all the books on the table, that's probably not the hobby for them either. So while my gatekeeping might sound simplistic and might allow for a great number of problematic people to flood into the hobby, trust me, you gatekeep those 2 groups out, and you're going to have a pretty pure pool of gamers to sit down at your table ready to game. And we went from 31 people watching to 26. I see that I've lost some folks already. But to go back to what I was saying about initiating people in, particularly into classic D&D, as I've said before, guys, as a dungeon master, it's fairly easy to off a character or to off a whole party. You can do it 3 or 4 times a night if you're really good. That's not the hard part of DMing. The hard part of DMing, what you should strive for, is fairly keeping them alive. Is taking them to the point where their decisions make all the difference in the world between whether or not their characters survive or their characters don't, and put it in their hands. That is the Zen state of dungeon mastering, when you can let go of the game and the player's actions dictate what happens to them next. And they can't turn around and point at you and reasonably say, you killed my character. That is one of the hidden lessons of the module S1, The Tomb of Horrors. It's not just a test for players and their thinking skills. It's a skill. It is a test for dungeon masters and their thinking skills. A module like Tomb of Horrors is not too hard. It is just hard enough for players with critical thinking skills and an intimate understanding of your DMing style and how Advanced Dungeons and Dragons works. That they can survive it if they know those things. It's very popular to look at Tomb of Horrors and say it's just full of arbitrary death. It's not. Nothing in Tomb of Horrors says, well, Dungeon Master, if they won't touch the great green devil face sphere of annihilation, have it drift out and chase them around while you cackle like a madman. It sits there, inviting and waiting. You don't have to say a monster comes along and grabs a character and throws them in, or have the sphere become detached and start chasing them around trying to delete them. It's there for the players. If magic is detected for, it radiates magic and evil. Objects that are thrown in, they're not heard to hit. A 10-foot pole probed in, whatever length is pushed in, if a character doesn't touch it, they'll see it disintegrated. It is incumbent on you as a dungeon master to make Dungeons and Dragons just hard enough. But when you have a new player who's come in, it is also incumbent on you to make that entry into the game easy. I don't mean you have to hand them the world. Let's say they're coming from a custom 5e game run by someone who's big into furry, right? Well, I have an Anthro Kitsune shapeshifter, Sorlock gunslinger, spellblade, tiefling, rogue, artificer, half gelatinous cube, ASMR, with 25 levels of paladin, and he's chaotic evil. And I want to do that in AD&D. In cases like that, it's best to start tabula rasa and frame the game as what it is. Frame AD&D as what it is. Don't try and make AD&D into a thing to suit them. And think about the automobile. Some people think that public transportation is the only way to go. Some people think that riding in single luxury is the only way to go. Trying to build a single occupant luxury bus, yet that also suits 25 to 150 other people, you've got a disaster on your hands. See you, Orbital. Take care. Be well. Be safe. Upper half, Derek. Upper half. But at the same time, you draw more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. Think of yourself as a non-commissioned officer, and players new to classic Dungeons and Dragons are green troops who've got to go into the line. Do you tell them, lol, good luck, and sit back? Or do you try to give them lessons? And give them lessons through fair instruction. I don't mean give them lessons. I killed 6 of his characters before he finally got it. Is like if we go back to the NCO instruction, I threw 6 grenades at him and wounded him 6 times before he finally got it. Then when he heard, the click ping sound of a grenade pin being pulled to duck, to get out of the way. But what is important for you, the game master, again, is to let these new players, let them taste some of that sweetness. Don't be mean. It's pointless to be mean. If somebody says, I really want to learn this, I really want to play, even if they just want to play the one session you've run, appreciate that. Appreciate what they've done for you. All right? A free RPG day, a games day, a convention. They paid to be there. And if you really put up a hell of a good game, guess what? You might have just gained a player. You might have gained someone who says, hey, I've been playing this game now with you for 6 months, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. I want to run a game for you. And brothers and sisters, let me tell you what. If you hear that, if you're a forever GM, just like me, that is music to your ears. Exactly, precisely this time last year, when Mrs. the Dungeon Delver was convalescing after her surgery, my friend Daniel McDougall had been mentioning to me, he had played off and on, he had spoken to me off and on for about a year, maybe more, about when he might run a couple of months of AD&D. And that was the ideal opportunity because I couldn't really commit to running a game. I could sit and listen, and if needs be, get up and go attend to Mrs. the Dungeon Delver. And so Dan ran the game. He ran a brutally effective game of Keep on the Borderlands for 6 weeks. And it was amazing, and we all had a lot of fun. We all had so much fun. And that was what it was all about. I was never so proud. Dan stepped up into the NCO role, and it was amazing to watch. Build that. Build that. Build it, and you'll have an endless amount of fun. You know, people say, oh, it's not 1978 anymore. You know, we can't spend time playing D&D. You can do it. You can wheedle out a little bit of time. I mean, until he took on a vice presidency, one of my players on Monday night was a CTO for Amazon. Hey, Jeremy, if you're watching. And he played D&D with us, and he had a fine time. You want to talk about somebody who's busy? You know, and then down on the other end of the spectrum, you've got me. I'm on eternity leave. And you might say, it's easy for you, Bill, but what I'm saying is, guys, when you're sitting there and you have a brand new player, you know, it's very funny to say, lol, DCC character funnel, throw that thing away. If you've got a new player, 4 dice 6, drop lowest, arrange to taste. And I guarantee somebody will get something that they really enjoy playing. And the simplicity of it all, particularly if they come from a version where you've got column and line of gobbledygook on a character sheet. What's my bonus here? What's my stat bonus? When they're unfettered from that, and they look at you and they say, I can just try that, it'll feel good, brothers and sisters. It'll feel good. That dopamine release I was talking about from posting on Twitter, imagine getting a guaranteed rush of that week in and week out because you've got people who are willing to hang on your every word and enjoy the experience that they're having because you treated them decently. Look, nobody likes the smell of cat piss. Don't be a cat piss man. Okay? This is not Full Metal Jacket. I joke about it. There's a long-standing joke. I rewrote Senior Drill Instructor Hartman, played by Arlie Ermey's spirit and soul-destroying speech from the beginning of Full Metal Jacket to be framed in the words of a dungeon master to new players. All right? Nobody's going to die IRL because somebody's character dies. All right? You're not killing people with graph paper. Let them have fun. You know, you get to Against the Giants. You get to the Slave Lords modules. You get to Lost Caverns of Sojkonth. They've been with you. They're seasoned. There's not going to be a lot of, how does Magic Missile work again? What can I do with tensors floating? Can I ride tensors floating this? There's not going to be a bunch of that. You will have seasoned players, but more importantly, you will have players because you stuck with them and you treated them decently. There's absolutely every reason to be decent to people who are just learning to play classic Dungeons and Dragons. There is no reason to break balls. You're not Alan Ford, Bricktop in Snatch, okay? You're not Senior Drill Instructor Hartman. You're not Sergeant Zim. You're not even Invader Zim. You're a dork, just like the person on the other side of the Dungeon Master's screen. Now, a few years down the line, if you've got a magic user who doesn't bother asking how far a wall away is before they cut loose with lightning bolt, well, they should have known better, particularly if they said they were already a veteran of the game. But be open. Be open to having new players come in your game. Welcome the newbie. Don't squelch them. You know, if they say, hey, I know you don't have tumbling feats, but can I run across the room, the bar room, and smash the bandit chief over the head? And I want to jump from table to table and swing from the chandelier to get over to him. What is that but a charge? They're just describing a rapid movement across the room. They're not trying to get an edge in on you. Hell, if they don't know what a charge is, say, you know what? For style points, I'm going to give you a +1 on that. And they'll just be like, +1 for my creative thinking. Aren't we talking about basic respect and human decency? Yes, we are, John Stewart Keller, and I think that's a thing that people need to be gently reminded of. Now, you might wonder, where's the weenie, Bill? Where's the punchline? Who broke your sacrosanct rules? What are you going to tell us about somebody doing something horrible? No, I'm not. I'm sorry, if you were waiting for me to say, and that's why I'm going to take a dump on this guy and what he said, no. I just think it's a thing that people should subscribe to. It's just a simple matter, really, to guide someone into classic Dungeons and Dragons and make it a fun experience for them. And when you've done when you've done that, guess what? You've got a new player, or at the very least, you've got someone who speaks well of you. Maybe they don't want to play D&D, but they certainly won't go around saying, well, Bill Sylvia is kind of a dick. So people talk about rule zero. Rule zero. Oh, rule zero. Rule zero is treat your players decently, especially if they're new players. If people are willing to learn to play, not to be social media faces, not to come in and make, activist statements, let them. And then you teach them the riddle of dice. What is the riddle of dice, Kyle? What is the riddle of dice? Somebody asked me what this painting is. Was someone asking me what this painting is? Let me see. Let me scroll up. I hope I'm not losing anyone tonight. I hope people aren't out there calling for my Grognard card to be rescinded. Michael asked what this painting is. So this painting here, I'm going to very carefully move things because I don't want to knock things over, because there are so many knockable over things. We're going to move the Galaga machine. Going to move All Might here. Stand him right here. Going to move the Guac pint glass, which I really should have had my cider out of tonight. The glass would have been better insulated. And Rick Deckard bobblehead. And my moon monolith, so you guys can now all see that a little bit better. So this painting was, this is a canvas print, right? This is not an original, because this is a watercolor on, what is the word? Help me out here. Gouache? Anyway, is the original. A scan was made of that, and this was made for me. This was proposed by Tracy Lesh as one of the first color art pieces for original Dungeons and Dragons. They decided not to, but this is by Tracy Lesh, the creator of the Mind Flayer for original Dungeons and Dragons. We've had Tracy on the show many times. So that's what that is. And yes, my little Galaga machine, I don't know if the battery is good. Yes, my little Galaga machine does in fact work. It's got a working joystick. See if I can. Let's reset. And there's start. I don't know if you guys can hear that. Here we go. Anyway, that's miniature Galaga. But yes, I also have this guy here. I don't think he's a Funko or a bobblehead. I don't remember who makes him. I've got his box around here somewhere. But yes, that is 2049 Rick Deckard. And then we have All Might. If you guys don't know, My Hero Academia, well, that's one of the superheroes, All Might. But anyway, it is a beautiful sound. It is a wonderful sound. But to come back around to where we were, as we've had a little break now. That is lesson 1 of how to dungeon master. That is lesson number 1 of how to dungeon master. If somebody really wants to play, treat them well, and you may get a dedicated player. I have had up to 15 people playing on my Monday night game. 15 people. I've DM'd at a con for as many as 24. My convention games started out in 2007. I think that, yeah, because I was doing 2 cons a year for the Historical Miniatures Gaming Society, their Hurricon and Recon events. And I wrote the WGH 2, 3, 4, and 5 modules to run at those conventions. I ran WGH2 as a standalone. When I announced that I was running WGH3 and that I had 8 slots, the game filled up immediately, and I had people asking me for more slots. When I ran WGH4, I expanded it out to 14 slots, and it filled up. That night, when we broke, because it was 2 sessions of 4 hours, it was from noon to 8 o'clock. When we broke, 14 other people came over to the table and sat down. And I had to tell them that the other 14 were coming back. I went out into the hall where the sign-up sheets were. My sign-up sheet, all the spots were full, and people had taped Post-it notes written in the margins. The next game, I said, fine, 24. Both sessions were full. And it was largely the same people. When did Edition Wars seep into the community? So that would have been about when Dungeons and Dragons was released in 1974 to 1975. I'm not being flippant, by the way. OD&D was the only edition of Dungeons and Dragons. However, because OD&D is open to separate interpretations on how certain rulings are, and TSR's official word was, your rules are as good as ours as far as any interpretation of this goes. At UCLA, there were 2 massive groups of OD&D players, and they hated each other. They hated each other because this group played a version of D&D that was more this way, and the other group played because it was more that way. It has been amplified by the internet since about 2000. Is what real, Aaron? Now, Command Post brings up an interesting point. He says, I want to do that with Star Wars. I kept begging people to get involved, but social media, because I have opinions. My politics suck, and so do yours. Not just you, Command Post. Any of you. My politics suck. Kyle's politics suck. Aaron's politics sucks. Lux Armach's politics suck. All of our politics suck. That's just the way it is. So, in my bio on Twitter, it says, first edition AD&D only, no politics. And that's the way I go. Twitter tries to make me look at political things. I don't. I delete them. I'm not interested in this. I'm not interested in this. I'm not interested in this. And I'm not interested in this. In the middle, Lux, where sane people do, I hold it like that, pointy end, big end, or big end, pointy end, bracing it with my middle finger, and I crack it so it cracks in the middle. Uncle Brat, okay, all right. There you go, Aaron. That's the way. Jason, my apologies. Jason's politics blow. So, yeah, I mean, I just refuse to swim in that pool. I mean, even people who I like and I follow, if I see them posting political stuff up on social media, I don't engage with it anymore. I joke about this, but I'm trying to mutate Twitter into a forum just for the discussion of classic tabletop role-playing games. I'll even, occasionally I posted, guys, you're all having very good discussions about current events, but let's just remember, Twitter is made for the discussion of classic tabletop role-playing games with an emphasis on classic Dungeons & Dragons, so let's not get off topic. Let's just stay on those two things. But anyway, back to edition warring. Yeah, it was all the way back in OD&D days. There was an edition split inside the edition. It's just gotten amplified by the internet. Someone dug up, I don't remember where this was, but someone dug up probably the first edition warring post on the open, publicly accessible internet from 1985 from UUNet, which preceded Usenet. It was a UUCP bulletin board post complaining about Unearthed Arcana. Cryotlore says, this is the first time I own GM AD&D 2. What are the most important things you should cover with them in your opinion? That is great. Thank you. Okay. All right. That's good. That's a good question. Cryotlore asks a very important question. I'm going to expand this. So, that's much better. So the things you should cover with them, particularly if they're coming from newer editions, is that they need to think off of their character sheet. Don't think, tell them, remind them not to look at their character sheet as restrictive because it doesn't tell them what they can do, but tell them it's liberating because it doesn't tell them what they can't do. Which is to say, they can try anything. Can I swing across the chasm? Sure. The thief climbed over there and tied off a rope? Sure. Can my character swim across the river if he takes his armor off? Absolutely. Can my character forage for nuts and berries and small game? Because we don't have a cleric to cast create food and water and we're out of rations? Yes. Just remind them, this is a heads-up game. What is more advantageous for a modern fighter jet? Looking down at the gauge clusters with this massive info dump? Or looking up, heads up, eyes out, focusing on the target? I know what modern fighter jet designers will tell you. And that's what you should remind players of first. The next thing, cry out lore, the next thing is avoid unnecessary conflicts. Avoid unnecessary conflicts. If your party is scaling a cliffside and they're on a little ledge moving along, and there's a cave, blasted and blackened. It's hot near the cave. They hear a steady breathing, maybe an occasional wisp of brimstony smoke coming out. There's charred skeletons lying in the mouth of the cave. The cave opening is 40 feet high and 30 feet wide. And this is a first level party. They should probably note where that is on their map and keep moving. It is an unnecessary encounter. Now let's say that red dragon, very smart, puts a little pile of treasure in the front of the cave, and they're like, well, we can take that. And they decide to, and you determine they're not heard. The party should avoid going further into the cave. They have gotten some treasure. It's best if they move on. Avoid unnecessary encounters. Guess what? Parlay is a thing in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons First Edition. If you can talk to the orcs, maybe you find it distasteful. But if there's 108 of them and there's 4 of you, and you roll that 99 plus a 25-point charisma bonus, convincing them to let you pass through is avoiding an unnecessary encounter. Avoid unnecessary encounters is rule number 2 as a player. Now, I've told you about rule 0 as a dungeon master. Let them have fun. Now, this dips into dungeon mastering styles. Some may disagree with it. Some may agree with it. But don't railroad your characters. The thing about railroading, though, that you have to remember, and this kind of gets into some category A, B, C, and D sub-processes, but hear me out. Players and characters both sometimes willingly get on that railroad, and they're perfectly happy to ride it to the end. Don't be afraid to kind of nudge your characters along. I mean, I regard B2 as probably the greatest Dungeons & Dragons module ever written. And it states, if a party becomes lost and is walking off the edge of that map, have a friendly magpie fly past them and redirect them to the right direction. It's a sandbox, true. But I mean, you know, we've all played the Fallout games, the Far Cry games. You bump up against the edge of the world, you can't go any further. Maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you want to have the party decide, well, you know, we don't want to do B2. We want to go on, and you'll roll up other stuff for them. But if a party wants to go places and do things, for goodness sake, let them. Your world is not a set of railroad tracks. Now, if they're lost and they're trying to figure out what to do, yeah, maybe kind of cook something up and throw it at them. Get them engaged. Aaron, absolutely right. Negotiation is a thing. But don't put your characters on railroad tracks, but don't be afraid to direct your characters to action, particularly if they're a new group. So we'll call that, we'll call that rule 2 and 2A. Now, rule number 3, and guys, this one is so important. Let me tell you something. Rule number 3, exactly, Uncle Brat. You can just kind of swing the broom at them and hope that maybe they run into the den so you can shut the door, you know? They might take 3 laps around the table, under the microwave tray, back out in the living room, across the ottoman, and then into the den when you can shut the door. But, you do what you can. But rule number 3 is so important. Now, I've talked about adversarial DMing and why it's a good thing. Adversarial DMing is all about playing your players right up to the edge of their ability. Because when the dust settles and they've won, they've gotten off a good victory. Ancillary to that, but of equal importance, is, as a dungeon master, be a gracious loser. Be dramatic. Be over the top. I'll get you guys next time. But when your players win, let them win. We killed the dragon. Woohoo! And you're sitting there stewing because they killed the dragon in 3 rounds, not the epic 30-round fight that you had flow charted out. Don't throw your pencil down, fold your arms, fume, and then say, what you thought was the dragon's treasure is actually yellow mold. All of you say versus poison. Ha, ha, ha. Or, that was just an illusory dragon. You didn't ask to save versus illusion, so the damage is real, and you've used up your spells. The real dragon enters the room, and be a gracious loser. Let your players win, because it'll feel so good. And guys, you may not believe this, particularly if you're a new dungeon master. But sitting back and watching your players celebrate after making it through something that you threw at them, and you know that they played to the absolute edge of their abilities, whether it went in a single round or 30 rounds, it feels good in here. That's another dopamine release for you as a DM. It feels good. Trust me, it feels very good. Of course, Death Angel. Of course, we root for the players. You don't act on the, I think fudging the dice is a no-no. Exactly, Aaron. Let me tell you something. One of my favorite games, and I am unabashed about this, is the Half-Life series, with the exception of Alex. Half-Life, Half-Life Blue Shift, Half-Life Opposing Force, Half-Life Decay, despite the fact that it has a very depressing ending, but I don't think any Half-Life has a happy ending, except maybe temporarily Blue Shift. Half-Life 2, Lost Coast, Episode 1 and Episode 2. I don't consider Alex part of my canon, so I ignore it. In Half-Life 2, Episode 1. Okay, so let me back up a bit here. Half-Life has in its roots old school shooter tropes. You can carry a pistol, a shotgun, a machine gun, a rocket launcher, and they mix it up. Rather than having an energy weapon, you've got the gravity gun, which you can pick stuff up and throw it at bad guys and knock them off cliffs, or just the impact will kill them or whatever. And then you've got the assault rifle, or the AR-2, which is kind of an energy weapon, and the crossbow for sniping. But it's your basic stable of first-person shooter weapon tropes. And you can carry a limited amount of ammunition. Now, at the end of Half-Life 2 Episode 1, you are tasked with a very short escort mission to get refugees to a train to escape from the Combine's forces in City 17. It's just across an open lot in a city block that is besieged by enemies. Scattered around is a lot of missile launcher ammo. Also, there is a missile launcher ammo dispenser. It doesn't put rounds on the ground. You just go up to it and press it, and the rounds are added to your inventory. Now, this is important. This is important to this story. The biggest, baddest opponent you can face in the game is the Strider. It's like a tripod from War of the Worlds, but it's got like a horseshoe crab body. It's like semi-organic. The Strider takes 3 or 4 missile hits to take down. Before you initiate the call, as it were, for the first group of refugees to come over, the game waits on you. It doesn't do anything. You can roam around that vacant lot area. Bad guys don't show up. During one playthrough, I said, you know what I'm going to do? Right at the end, you have to fight your way past a Strider when it's your turn to get on the train. Scattered around the place where you're going to fight the Strider are missiles you can pick up, individual missiles. But there's none right at the start. I moved all of the loose missiles to that area. Then I let the groups of refugees run, and I defended them, getting missiles from the dispenser. Then when they were all on their train and they left, I waited for the Strider to show up, step out. I grabbed all of my missile ammo right there, instead of running through the maze of buildings and stuff, having a running battle with it, and I blew it up right then. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I was pretty proud of myself. And it makes this boom and falls over. I was pretty proud of myself. Do you know what the game did? Spawned another one. It spawned a second one. and I had to do the damn fight the way it wanted it to. The computer was a shitty, petty DM. Don't do that. Don't do that. If you put something in your adventure that the players adjust for and they win, let them reap the rewards of it. Let them reap the rewards of it. Don't spawn another Strider. I was so angry that turning on cheats in Half-Life requires opening the console, SV cheats equals 1, exiting out of the game, restarting the game, reloading from where you turn on the cheats, and then going from there. So it's not like I could just turn on cheats. But I was like, you son of a bitch, what would you do if I had had 6 missiles out here instead of 3? And I had taken that Strider down. Would you have spawned a third? 9 instead of 6. A fourth? 12 instead of 9. A fifth? Let your players win. If they win. Now, don't let them win by dint of being rules lawyers. I mean, if you're wrong about a ruling, I mean, if your interpretation of the ruling is just completely busted, then, yeah, but don't let your players bend the intent of the rule around. It says, and not if, therefore I get infinite magic missiles. Don't let them do that. Hey, Kabuki. But Cryat, I want to kind of come back to your question. Yeah. What's on to reiterate, to recap what you're saying, what is on the page for the player, for the character sheet, is of minimal importance. Once you've got, if you're a fighter, you're getting +2 to hit and +1 to damage because of your strength. Okay. And you've got a +1 longsword. So that's +3 to hit, +2 to damage. There you go. That's it. You don't have to keep checking back over and over and over again. Just remind them of that. Now, unfortunately, published character sheets, the ones that TSR published, the ones that the Armory published, tend to be kind of Byzantinian. Make your character sheets for your players. I don't mean make the characters for the players. I mean make the character sheets for the players and keep them simple. Now I'm going to say something else. This is like, I'm going to see like my viewer count right now is going to go from 30 to 15, probably down to 12, but I'm going to risk this anyway. Tell your boyfriend that he forgets, hey, I'm not inserting myself in a discussion between you and your boyfriend. I'll get hate mail. I'm kidding. Send him to the show. Put him in the audience. I'll tell him. a necklace of missiles and ba-boom. Very well earned. This is back for Dungeon Masters. This is like way deep down in the guts of the rules. I'm talking philosophy. I'm talking DM philosophy 101. But there's something I just want to make a mention of because it can really lighten your load. Cryat to do this. Don't use Thaco. Just don't. You, the dungeon master, have a table. Just refer to the table. Don't make your player stop and do like, so there's just a 20, 19, 50, 14, plus 1, 15. It's as bad as the number fumbling in 3E onwards. Just use the charts. Right here. They're in the Dungeon Master's Guide on page 71, I believe. I don't have it in front of me. But right there. There's the tables. Attack matrix for monsters. Attack matrix for the 4 major class divisions. You've got your saving throws. And you've got your saving throws for items. That's it. That's what you need. No formulas. Just those charts. Now, before you guys get on me about the but it's just FACO does not and is incapable of accounting for repeating 20s. Woohoo! I got a nat 20. Yeah, but you're 5th level and that thing had armor class -5. You got to account for repeating 20s. Yes, Kryat, my brother. Command post, bruh. But yeah, Kryat, I do recommend you just put the stuff on the sheet that's going to be important. Don't if you hand them a sheet and there's like all the thief skill subsections and psionic subsections and unarmed combat subsections and weapon versus armor type charts and that sort of thing, and they're not filled in, it's an eye maze. It is an eye maze. A beholder couldn't keep track of all that. A beholder that you can get a resin printed miniature of for $45 right now. 95 of them are still available. Drop me an email, bsylvie@gmail.com. Put beholder purchase in the subject line, and in the body, list your name, your address, and how many beholder miniatures you'd like to purchase. 3D printed, gorgeous resin beholders right here. Look at those bad boys. They're gorgeous. You want one. When we receive 100 orders, they go into production. And I don't take payment until your beholders are ready to print. $20 does not always hit, Mike. But I'll say it will, if that'll get you to buy a beholder model. Tragedy occurred in the music world today when Falco was run over by Taco. I don't know. Jerry Lewis. You guys don't remember Rock Me, Jerry Lewis? So questions, guys. Questions. I've waxed philosophical. That is correct, Vaughn. That is correct. Yeah, you can probably find it on YouTube, Kabuki. But anyway, questions. I've talked about DMing philosophies. I've talked about primary first things you should know. I've talked about why it is important for you to be inclusive to new gamers coming in to your classic Dungeons and Dragons games. What do you guys have to say about it? What do you guys have to say about it? I want to hear. Oh, here's a little bit of philosophy. We've all heard, the golden rule. Those who have the gold make the rules. But almost as important, but just as much fun, is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Teach your players this. The players are constantly throwing flaming oil, setting up rope traps and everything. Do it to the players. Monsters aren't stupid. They're not just there in the dungeon to be herded into abattoirs. Did I see you reply to Kabuki about players knowing their characters? Death Angels, let me scroll up a little bit. Okay, now you are bringing up a good point. Death Angels is bringing up a very valid point here when he says, you expect your players to know their characters' ability, spells, etc. Yes, but also no. And hear me out. A brand new player to the game, particularly if and I would say more so if they're coming from newer versions of D&D, that can be intimidating. All right. Spell effects might do different things in different editions. Wait, my armor class is lower and that's better. Be kind and be patient with new players coming into the game. Now, if they've been at your table for, a few weeks, you can accept a few. I'm sorry, how do I do that again? If they've been there for many months, it's at that point you need to start expecting them to know this stuff, right? So I think, I think it's important to have an open mind and answer a question. I mean, what do I say before and during and even after our AD&D live streams? If you don't know what's going on in this game, if we talk about a rule and it's confusing to you, ask us. I'll try and catch it in the scroll, but ask us. Oh my God, that my heart, collecting chaos. You're so right. We have to bring in new players. Otherwise, where will the future AD and DMs come from when we're gone? So important. So important. Clip your adventure log. Yeah, the Dungeon Master's adventure log can be very helpful, and if you don't want to get a PDF of it and print those out, just make yourself a spreadsheet. You can go into Word Pad. Is it WordPad? Yeah, WordPad. You can go into WordPad and create tables in WordPad, and then landscape print your document out of WordPad and make your own Dungeon Master's adventure logs with the tables feature. So you don't even have to get Excel. No, I haven't. But the Dungeon Master's Adventure Log sheets are endlessly helpful. Number of monsters, room they're in, treasure they have, XP value they are. If you fill these out before your game, it's like doing your homework in class when everybody else is in quiet reading time, and then you get home at 4:00 and you're like, gonna go watch cartoons. Got any homework to do? No, I don't. Lux, I'm actually okay with that. If you do psionics and no magic, that's fine. I've talked before about psionics. I think psionics are usable if you drop or seriously nerf cell adjustment psionic point recharge rates and move psionics into segment actions instead of the one player with psionics and the creature with psionics are going to stand there Professor Xing each other for 10 minutes. I think if you make it just like spell casting and adjust those two discipline, or adjust one discipline and the recharge rate, I think psionics are fine. Well, Kryat, send him here. I mean, yes, I'm tooting my own horn, but I'm also telling you point blank, send them here. If they're firsty interested, AD&D curious, if you will, send them here, and I'll, they'll get good info from me as well as you. Is it, Damien, is that how 3.5e psionics work? I don't know. I'm looking for something right now. Don't mind me. Do not pay attention to that man behind the curtain. Now, I want to mention, I did not get the end credits. We're not ending or anything in the next minute or so. But I do want to mention, where is it? Let's see. We've actually gotten a couple of new folks over on Patreon. Gregory Frost and, let me see, whom I think I mentioned last night. Has this just not refreshed? No, I think that one. Let me see here. Hang on. Because I haven't updated the end credits, and I want to give these guys shout outs. And we got, let me see. Come on. Mark Copeland and Gregory Frost have joined us on this journey. Both of them are at Master Thief level, which means that, guess what? They kick off their rewards with Kyle's D&D Adventure module, which will drop in a few weeks. I haven't yet, Death Angel. I haven't yet. Let me see. And we have a new member over on YouTube. Again, don't have these guys. Let me switch over to that chat tab. Yeah, so since last night, we have picked up, we've gotten 4 subscribers, 4830. It was 4831 when I started the show, and I was like, oh, that's nice, but I guess somebody decided they want to have fun. Epic Fantasy has joined us, and Epic Fantasy became a member over on YouTube, which you too can do. And if you're wondering what I'm going on about, if you join us on Patreon at the $10 level or at the $9.99 level, I can't adjust it. I'm sorry. Those of you who think you're getting ripped off, who are fans over on Patreon, I apologize. But $9.99 level on YouTube memberships, $10 level on Patreon. Every month you will receive a miniature first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons adventure module. And the first one has already released. And folks, I haven't got any hate mail about it. So I hope people like it. Kyle Schuant has penned the next one, which will release a little further down, a little later this month. And then in October, we will have coming probably something spooky and Halloween themed. And then Death Angel splits the two. Did you, Death Angel? Did I get you your? Because you actually cover it. You cover both. Let me see. Someone had asked. Oh, did I get permission to play? I've been too busy to shoot off a message to Rich, but thank you for reminding me. I'll try and remember. And Death Angels, if you didn't, shoot me an email and I'll shoot you the PDF, because you're like an edge case. You're weird and you got it broken up. Is that so the missus doesn't find out? It's okay, buddy. We're here for you. Yeah, Uncle Brad, I'm taking you to the cleaners. Guys, Uncle Brat has been head and shoulders one of the most phenomenal donators to the show in terms of support. So, yeah, if you switch over to a YouTube membership, I am not gonna. I'm not gonna cry. Somebody just out of nowhere asked me a Dark Sun question on Twitter today. They're like, it mentions the such and the something dancer, blade dancer class can become students of the Razor, but it never says what that is. What's your take on it? And I'm like, +1 to hit with Eeps and with Epes and Poignards, because they're skinny blades. Maybe +1 to damage too. I don't know. I've never Dark Sun. It's not. I don't know. And I wasn't being dismissive, like, I don't know, dude, do whatever. You know, you can fall on it for all I care. No, I just took a good stab at it and said to go with that. So hopefully that helped. Collecting chaos, not pulling any punches. Yeah, there's Dark Sun computer games. That's a funny thing. There is a ridiculous amount of D&D computer games. People are like, yeah, there's like 6 or 8 or, maybe 9 or 10 gold box games. There's those. There was actually a Heroes of Greyhawk Diablo-like game that came out for like the Xbox. I was stunned. It has sweet FA to do with Greyhawk, other than some names, but Good night, Clark. Take care. Be well. Oh, yeah, I love Pool of Radiance is excellent. And Pool of Radiance is sandbox, by the way. I'll fight you on that one. What I love about Pool of Radiance sandboxing this is, like, even after dungeons are cleared out, there's one place events that are super duper deadly in some dungeons that, despite the fact that the monsters are all dead and the loot's all gone, those traps keep resetting and you can lose a high level party to them still. Lux, you make a good point. I just take care, John Stewart Keller. I mean, we're probably going to wrap up here because we're at like 90 minutes, and I've sort of run out of useful things to say this time. But let me ask you guys something. What for the handful of you that are still here. Do you guys want... Because years ago, I did how to play AD&D, like from a player's perspective. Do you guys want like how to DM? Like look at it from this side of the DM screen type videos from me? Let me know. And if you do, I'll do. I'm easy like Sunday morning. I mean, I can do it. I don't know when I could fit it in. You'd have to check your announcements. So anyway, just ponder this. Contemplate this on the tree of woe. Crucify him. Anyway. Urban verse, some more DMing wisdom. I will bring it. I will absolutely bring it. But yeah, we can absolutely do that. So that about wraps it up for me tonight, guys, though. Tomorrow night, somebody was after me to mention this. I think it was Death Angels. Tomorrow night, Heidi Gygax and Eric Garland will be in attendance. And they're going to talk about their Kickstarter that just released. Guys, the $16,000 mark, yours truly gets to convert their adventure to first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Considering it's a 1930s, 40s horror setting, I'm kind of excited about that. So, I hope it happens. Oh, thank you, Kryat. That's very nice. Thank you very much. So, anyway, you guys be good to each other, please. It costs nothing to be nice. It costs you absolutely nothing to be nice. And what it puts in the bank for you can be immeasurable. Because you can look back one day and when you're like, I just don't have it in me to DM anymore, guys. Maybe that person you are nice to has been watching and is like, I want to DM. I want to run a game for you. Because, I came to you from a hybrid 5e, 4e, D&D 1 game. And you helped me love this stuff. So do that. Do that, and it will pay off dividends. Again, I want to thank everyone for being here. Thank you all for choosing to hang out this evening. It has been a stone groove, a sagacious guess. And I will be back tomorrow with Heidi and Eric, and we will talk about their Kickstarter and other salient things. Who knows? Maybe it'll fund tomorrow night during the show and we'll have to crack open some more champ. But we'll see. We'll see. Until then, guys, please be good to each other. I love you all. But for God's sake, watch out for the owl bears. Peace.
Have you seen my owl bear? Here's to all the weirdos everywhere in the woods and in the air. Have you seen my owl bear? Should I shave off all my hair? Bobs are all around. Some live in tunnels underground. Some are fat, some are rich, some are sleeping in a ditch. Can you ride a crooked horse without a saddle way off course? naked as a toad, all the way to Smoky Joe's. Have you seen the little creep driving fast in his little green Jeep? He smells like fish and brandy, but his rotten teeth look dandy. Take me to the show, I don't care if fast or slow. From action flicks to dancing dicks, just take me to the show.